Hello, my name is Jeff Jimiolo, and today I'd like to talk about the saying, chasing the money. It's a very interesting saying in that it's people who, the definition I'm going to give is they're more interested in actually the end result than they are the journey. And usually it involves money. In my profession, I'm a software developer. You see that a lot where people are more interested in how do they get their paycheck, or not just how they get their paycheck. It's how do they get paid versus doing the job, so to speak. In other words, they're not real skilled at how they do their job. They just want to see the big money. They want to make it rich, I guess you could say. People look at me a lot. So I've been doing this for 40 years. Since I was a teenager, I've been into computers. So I have a lot of experience in it. And people look at me and say, "Oh, I want to do the way you go," but are you willing to dedicate 20 years of your life to doing it? I was literally 15 years before I got paid to actually do software. Are you willing to invest 15 years of your life not being paid to do something? Probably not. Because if you're chasing the money, oddly enough, there's a saying in the Bible. It's in the Bible. It's about money is the root of all evil, which is ironic because really it's actually implying that money's bad, and money is not bad. Actually, worshiping money is. It's like any idol. Sometimes I'm on that fine line of computer programming being an idol for me. And really what it boils down to is, do you put more time in God or this idol? Think of it that way. Whether it be money, whether it be, in my case, computer programming. In my case, I put a little bit more in God, or in doing humane things, putting it in a more generically neutral way. But money is not terrible. I said without money, actually, this entire realm would fall apart, as we're probably soon going to see. From God's perspective, God needs money, people. It's just he shouldn't worship it. So it's not bad to make money. It is bad to worship it and hoard it and keep wanting more and more and more and not sharing it, so to speak. Most people will tell you, especially people that were not selfish, that God will tell you to be selfish because it's your time to be selfish. You can't be give your whole life away, all your money away for your entire life. It won't work. Universal laws, it has to come into balance. So you have to be a little bit greedy because you weren't in the past. You weren't for the last couple of years. So you got to kind of balance it all out. Seems kind of quirky to say, but I understand it. So now we have this very deep interest in money to the point where it's kind of governing all your actions. Now, mind you, I did not say that you'll do anything for money. That's also part of the saying too, but I did not put it in there because that could be anything. It could be literally I could sell my body, prostitution, and I'm talking legal ramifications here. But generally what's really odd about it is people who chase the money kind of usually do unethical things to get there. It's not the people who, work a full-time job and then at night do a little bit of a side hustle, okay, and want to make more, want to make their own business or whatever. I'm not talking about those people. These are people who are actually usually committing a crime already by stealing. As creepy as it sounds, they do things like they steal time off their employer and they run their own side business. Being in the software industry, people that are on salary, okay, people misconfuse the word. Salary for me means I'm working 60 hours a week. Salary to other people means I'm working 20 hours a week and I got to find 20 hours of my side job to do. That's usually what it means. I don't know why, but that's the mentality. Perhaps I'm a workaholic. I admit that. But other people, maybe you need to spend a little bit more time at work. Because to be honest with you, the less time you spend at work, the less knowledge you're accruing, the less experience you're getting. And they don't really get that. But then again, if you have a side hustle going, chances are really good you don't like your primary job anyway. And that's what I've noticed over the years is a lot of people have a side hustle and they're really not any good at their primary job. Why they're in that job, I don't know. It's, they have a skill, a little bit of a skill. They people will pay for it, and they kind of know how to talk their way into keeping their job, and that's what they kind of do from year to year to year. I go, but they're not really good at it. They're not growing. They're pretty stagnant. But their side hustle is they keep growing that baby. Anyway, time theft is actually one of the bigger ones. That happens all the time. And it's not uncommon. As I said, I work for a Christian company. And, we kind of give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't know. People that work from home, oh, man, if I had my way, I'd fire them. You don't want to come in the office? You're fired. You were originally hired to be in the office. You wanted to, goodbye. Because to be honest with you, I don't know what you're doing. So far, the track record is about 80% of people who work from home have a side business or are working totally for someone else and collecting your paycheck. Largely, you could say that's a management problem, that they're not keeping good tabs on them. And I agree with that. But at the same time, it's a very big, serious moral issue in the world. Because right now, things are going to get worse. In the software world, you're talking about people, 30,000 jobs here, 40,000 jobs there, developers are going to be laid off. Okay. But I look at it very entertainingly in that, are you really software developers anyway? I'm old school. And that means when I came into being as a software developer, it was actually 1980s actually. PCs just came out. The PCs were coming out in 84. So before that, I was actually working on a mainframe, doing some little bit of COBOL programming, a little bit of basic programming. That's all they had at the time. So I was already knee-deep into computers, interested in programming already. I was lucky in that my father had books all over the place about computers because back in the day, if you're not aware, back in the 70s, you got into computers, there was no college. You actually went to college for something else, like my adopted father went for accounting. So he went for accounting, worked as an accountant for a year, and then they sent him to school for 6 months to learn programming. Because part of accounting was programming. It's moving money from one account to another programmatically. That's kind of what their usage case was for the computer. And it makes sense because realistically, you think about back in the day, if you look at your electric bill, it's very similar to electric bill. You would go over and, if you look at the process of how back in the day, how your bill got your bill. You sent the guy out to the house. He would write the number down, your house number and what your meter said. He would turn that sheet in. Someone would punch that into a computer. It would be a giant list of this address, this reading. And then basically, computer-wise, a program would pick up this file, line by line, and say, okay, let me pull out this person's account with his name and address, make the form, blah, 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 blah. And actually, it would go over and populate the bill. But it also populate all the other accounting work that need to happen, like, okay, Jeff owes $200. Jeff paid X amount, and that's just a chart of accounts, or whatever you want to call it. But that's what really the old school systems were. So it made sense that you had accountants doing it because it was accounting work. And really, I said there was no college teaching it because what college would you want to teach it? It was only a 3-month, 3 to 6 month course. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure it was a 3-month course, if even a month course. You can technically read a book and get it. It's not hard. It's just getting experience in it. Well, it took another year, And as technology improved with databases and stuff like that and different data structures, it may have took a little bit longer. I go, but there still was no school. That's what's funny about it was there was no school. It actually was never a requirement to have a school. Because it's all you really needed is the want to be there. generally the person I idolized when I was a child. And I saw her on 60 Minutes. That's how I remember who she is Grace Mary Harper. She's I think the mother of computing, they call her. She invented the COBOL language, the one that we can't get rid of since Y2K. We have not been able to get rid of that for 60 years. It's so prevalent. My first professional job at a Fortune 500 company, and I worked with code that was older than I was. It was made in the 1960s, and I was born in 68. So it's like, wow, that's old. But then also, it's a very staggering thing to get there, see that, because you're like, wow, this thing's older than I am. Mind you, I was only 30 years old. I go, but it's like, wow. It just kind of jogs me. I did it. I'm doing something important, I guess. Anyway, what's... okay, so back to... That's generally how computers came about. So really there was no real college for any of that. Generally when college came around, it started teaching things. It was very theoretical stuff. It's like, okay, well, 1% of computer people will use this. The world really at this point needed people just to do, forgive the expression. But right now, computer programmers are the new slaves. They're the new people who work on the factory room floor. They're the ones that put the bolt inside the engine, one piece, and move on. That is what they do because there's no creativity in it anymore. With agile technologies and all this, where you're kind of getting all the information from above, not above like God, but from upper management, you're kind of getting knowledge, but none of it's any technically based anything. And the problem is you're just supposed to perform. The problem is there's no need for experience in that. You can train a monkey to go do that. As a matter of fact, that's the whole point of, I laugh at AI, because AI right now, the developers are like, oh, you're going to be replaced by, you are going to be replaced by AI because you're not creative at all. You're not doing a creative endeavor. You're just literally speed doing Google. From that perspective, AI is just basically whatever Google knows, it knows, and it can decipher how to put it together. So in other words, it can't do anything really creative. It can just go over and rearrange things. So when I tell it I want to, write a program that does this kind of form, it knows how to make a form and it can figure out, okay, well, this field, that field. You have to name all that stuff, otherwise it won't do it. So largely, it's just doing what you said based on a recipe it found on Google. Well, no different than what developers do. So essentially, you're kind of cutting out the developer. But the developer's not really using any creativity anyway because he's just looking on Google and figure out how to do it, and that's it. So, and experience doesn't matter anymore at that point. And that's the dirty secret, is that as much as no one wants to pay for experience, no one's going to get any experience. And that's a good thing. It's a bad thing. Okay, AI is going to kill a lot of jobs. I go, but it's jobs that were good anyway. It's how good is it to sit there and spend 4 or 5 years working on something in your mind on a piece of paper in a computer, and use it or don't use it. I don't know. It's not like I'm building a car where 20 years later it's still sitting there. It's not a physical item. Anyway, we digressed a little bit from chasing the money. One of the aspects that is troubling that I see is sometimes people go into management. I'm in the computer field, so they'll come into management and they'll, half on purpose, half incompetence, pick which way you want to go, they'll run the company into the ground and the company will go out of business. And then you go and you say, well, what happened to all, the assets and all that stuff? That's all sold off, as part of the bankruptcy process or part of the going out of business process. But a lot of the source code basically goes away. It just disappears magically. And, well, it doesn't really magically disappear. It actually goes to these people who actually ran a company into the ground. They kind of take it and then they sell it off to another company, as theirs. Which we're back to, that's actually intellectual property theft. The reason I mention that actually is there's a couple people who made a little oopsie, because over the years, I've made a library that I take with me wherever I go. Because it's kind of like, why do you start from scratch when I can start from this? I got these, say, 100 things that I do all the time, that businesses want to do all the time. So I take it, I move it over to them over here and say, okay, you guys could have it as long as I'm working here. Here you go. Okay, so now it's essentially, it makes my life easier. So your company, have it. Call it your own. I don't care. Okay, but then the company goes out of business or person leaves. They take that code with them and say, it's good code, man. And they take it and they start selling it. Well, the problem is it's not theirs. Intellectual property theft. Now, what's really ironic about it is you have two sides of the fence. One person got fired and took the code with them. The other person, from what I gathered, actually took all of our code with it to another company. And they were doing an audit of their code and said, oh, look at this code. But wait, why is it the same code that I just paid over money over here for? The exact same source code. Whoa, what? Intellectual property problem. And to my understanding, that's being fought out. I wish y'all luck with that, because I'm the actual owner for that. And none of y'all have permission to use it in your contexts. So, eventually, the price for stealing is paying me. But code theft is actually really, really big, and it happens a lot. To the point where, if I was running a business, I don't even know what I'd do anymore. I know I wouldn't have any work from home employees. I'd probably even contract. I'd probably just do contract. And I'd be worse than the government as far as compartmentalizing my data, because it's hard to trust people anymore. I know, anti-godlike, but you also got to protect yourself too. As I said before, what I find very ironic is people who are on salary who take advantage of the system. And I said, it's not just one or two either. It's just gross and all in American business nowadays. I think they call it quiet quitting or whatever. Like, oh, people have other jobs and don't even bother working anymore. It's not even they even show up for work anymore. I got software developers who are working for some other company. And they get like 2 paychecks, one from them and that. And I said, you're right. It's a management problem that they need to address, but damn. What I know about chasing the money is God has nothing against money. Example is if I'm good at making money, say I'm good at making money, and I'm not good at making money, but let's say someone is good at making money. God will not treat them horribly by making money. It's what do they do with that money. Example is if a person makes, say, $1 million a year, but at the same time gives 20% of that away to charities that do things, that feed the hungry, do whatever. God sees nothing wrong with that. And you could call it tithes, you can call it whatever you want. I go, but either way, God sees nothing wrong with that. You're not worshiping money. You may love the process of making money. Well, that's a different story. You're not worshiping money. And you're doing it with God's compliance. God wants you to go help other people. So, not a terrible thing. There's people. I think there's people out there. That's why you every now and again you meet someone like, really? It's kind of like lawyers. Lawyers, as much as they have I have a 95%. I think 95% of lawyers are sketchy. Just throwing it out there. But one day I'm gonna need one of those 5% lawyers that's not sketchy. Or maybe I'll find out that 5% of lawyers are sketchy and 95 are not. I don't know. But to me, lawyers are kind of sketchy across the board. They're very self-serving people. Kind of reminds me of politicians. Matter of fact, a lot of politicians are lawyers, which is kind of scary because they really shouldn't be practicing any kind of law at all. I think most politicians should kind of be in jail most of the time. But anyway, that's an opinion. They're the ones chasing the money a lot. To me, I've never believed in chasing the money. To me, if you follow your passion, the money will follow. And spiritualism actually says the same thing, indirectly. That you don't chase money, it will chase you if you're on the same frequency of it. Which if you want, if you believe in something, the money will come find you. Just like if I decide I want to start a business today and it's a good idea, the customers will come to me. Not literally per se, I still have to talk to people. I go, but it won't be a hard sell to sell them. It's the hard sell is the problem. When you have to do a hard sell, that throws up red flags that something's wrong with the deal. But, people who chase the money in the long run, what I've learned about people is they just don't make it. It's just, you look at all these stories about people who, a lot of them, it's not quick money. It's, they've had a business that failed. Oh, succeeded a little bit, then it failed. Or succeeded and they sold it. There's a pattern that they keep doing, that they keep working, they keep learning, and that's the point. Remember, I told you you're interested in the end result, but you're not interested in the journey to get there. And what's important is the journey. Generally, I don't worry about people stealing my source code, because what I laugh at it is when the time comes, there will be a day, and remember, that's your source code, right? When someone asks you what that code does and you won't know, and everyone will know you stole it. Because when you wrote a piece of code, you know exactly what it did because you wrote it. You remember 10 years ago you wrote it. And you know why. The easiest thing to ask someone is, why'd you write this piece of code? And you can usually rattle off an entire story because, and that's the funny part is they won't be able to do it. And that's usually has to do with most people who steal ideas. That's one of the reasons why I don't tell people what I do anymore. I don't really, if someone asks me what am I working on, nothing important is what I tell them. Because I'm sick of giving away ideas. They ask me, and then literally all of a sudden they get this genius idea to do the exact same thing I'm doing. My answer is, oh well, move on, next idea. And I'm really tired of it. So. But idea theft is also a thing, by the way. And the reason is that I've seen it a lot and with a lot of people. Generally, they're people that are already bankrupt of ideas, but I'm also reminded of a saying that usually when there's a corrupt person, the Lord will immediately take away creativity from the person. If there's a problem with morality, usually creativity is the first to go. I look at it as the reason the Lord's taking away your creativity is so you don't cause more damage. Because it's better to be not so creative in what you're doing, doing what other people have done, than to be creative and causing problems. That's kind of the way I see it. And it makes sense because if, you pay attention to people over the years, like, kid in school that you went to school with, used to be an artist, is not an artist anymore, but now they're an accountant and whatever. I go, there might be something nefarious with that. Or maybe not, but I'm just saying. Usually when creativity goes away, it usually means that God stepped in and took something back away from them. Same token, God actually can give you creativity back, by the way. Happens too. When you repent and you really do mean it, you can get it back. But it all depends on you. It actually depends on whether you really did change in your heart or not. And usually, on the spirit side, your spirit team, your ancestors especially, will usually go to bat with you for how you've changed. And then you should repeal that, you should get your creative back. And they'll kind of bargain on your behalf in the courts of heaven, so spiritual courts. Anyway, as I said, the Lord has nothing against money. The Lord does have a lot to do with greed and shady practices getting there. What comes around goes around is what the spiritual side says, and they're not wrong. When you steal time, that means someone's going to steal time from you, or someone's going to steal your business. Someone's going to steal something, or you're going to get hit with a lawsuit because you backed into somebody, and so more you're going to lose more money than what you gain by not doing it right. As I said, I just don't understand why people kind of get this idea that they just want to, steal someone else's time. I don't get that. It shows to me, it shows a complete lack of understanding of how business works. But it won't be the first time that I hear people talk about, oh, it's only a job. Like, well, if it's only a job, maybe you should quit. I'll tell you right now, if I ever start a business, if I even get a hint that it's a job for somebody, I'm not going to hire them. I don't care what skills you got. The reason being is what's important is the passion. It's not that you can do the job. So if you have the passion, you're willing to put in whatever time it takes to do it, whether that takes 2 hours or it takes 20. You're on the same wavelength as me now. We put it all into this because this is our baby. Is the way we look at it. It's not like, oh, it's 9 to 5 o'clock, it's time to go home. As much as the world runs on that, and there's a reason why there's a lot of shady things happening. Because these people don't really find their passion, what they're good at, they're doomed to be in a little rat race circle, the hamster wheel of money. I don't know. Anyway, as I said, unfortunately, there's a lot of theft when you chase the money. I don't know why. Let alone people stealing money and everything else. Other than being unethical, unchristian-like, unspiritual, unhealed, the good news is everyone that is doing this is actually starting to get a lot more karma for it. The horrible news about it is because they do shady shit all the time, shady stuff all the time, they don't know really why they're getting this. They just attribute it to like bad luck. But generally, people who do the one-off thing, like, I'm a goody two-shoes and then I do one bad thing, boom, they're the ones that know that it's karma and why you're getting it, ironically. Because they don't do anything wrong, so it had to have been that blip right there. It's the shady people you got to worry about because, don't hang around shady people. Please don't employ them either, by the way. I think the whole world's going to be in for a real surprise because you're going to find out that every job is going to require a business check, a DNA check, and everything to make sure the person that you say you are is who you are. To make sure you're not wanted for something. There's a lot of crime out here. And as I said, over the years in computers, you had to prove more and more that, you know what you're talking about. You need to do programming tests and all this other stuff. I don't blame them. I'd almost say, you need to go over and invest, make your own exam for these people to make sure that they know what you want them to know. Don't get me wrong, I don't find that very productive. I really do not. But you also got people out here that don't do the most basic thing. The most basic thing is if you lie on your resume. I'll be the first one to tell you, my first 2 entries on my resume were a lie for the first 10 years of my life. Reason is, otherwise no one would hire you. See, I picked a company that went out of business, and I said I worked for them for a year as a real junior something. Something that required no skill, something you couldn't prove, just to say I was employed in the computer industry. I'll be the first one to tell you that. And as soon as I start getting experience, I kind of dropped that one off and dropped another one off to where now that real experience I had, that is my real one. What's scary is people will go over and apply for jobs, talk their way into getting the job. The problem is they have no real desire to actually do right on the job. In other words, I was supposed to know this, I was supposed to know that, but I don't feel like learning that. Then they don't. And then they can't figure out why they're let go, a month later, 2 months, or 3, because it's part of their job. But they never bother to learn it. The smart find out, it's part of my job, I should learn it then. No offense, on a job posting it's usually a wish list, so they'll put about, say, 20 things on what they want on there. It's a wish list. Out of 20, you're probably looking at maybe 15 you use all the time and 5 that you don't. Nice to haves. I go, but when you find out it's part of your job and you have to learn it, you may want to learn it. If you have no desire to even learn it, then you may not want to actually apply to the job. And that's where people get hung up, is They'll apply for a job because they're chasing the money. And the problem is they go for a month, 2 months, or 3 months, and then they get bounced out. They get fired. And actually, in reality, it actually makes everyone look terrible because, now at this point, I need tests, I need this. It's all because you didn't want to do what you're actually supposed to do. I don't know. But it's just ironic because I said everyone has to lie usually on your first job. You kind of have to fake it before you make it. I understand the idea. I just don't agree with you keep faking it. Part of being a software developer is learning to be a software developer. Oddly enough, on an odd topic, when I was married, my wife used to tell everybody she was married to a master programmer, which was myself. The logic was that she was going to try to, guilt them into well, look, imply that you hire me, you also get my husband, with all this knowledge. And she got a job that way. And I basically told her, it's not my problem. I can learn how to do it. And basically, she would carry on, it's not fair. I go, then learn what they're asking you to do. If it's part of your job, you may want to learn it. Then she fought, well, can't you just do it? I go, well, then am I getting paid for you? You know what I mean? It's this is just not right. And it's not right to actually have to do it for your wife, by the way. Or anybody, for that matter. And as I said, it's not like I was not patient with her. Let me walk you through what this entails. Here's how the process. And it just became, well, why don't you just do it? Okay, well, I did it once or twice. And then at that point, it was every 20 minutes, she would call me at work wanting me to drop everything and do what she wanted to do because she doesn't want to look bad. I go, well, I'm not the one looking bad. You're the one actually that didn't do the work. I have no problems teaching. Not a problem at all. Problem is you want to chase the money, but you don't know how to make the money. You make the money by learning. That's what people forget. But like any other job, eventually what happens is someone eventually calls you out on something that, quote, you're supposed to have known to get there, and you don't know it, and you get busted, and you kind of get bounced out. And then everyone knows you kind of lied. That's usually how it works with, chasing the money. But people still do it, just like people still rob banks and all kinds of other things. I wish it was better. I wish life was better. I wish people would be better, but they're not. If I can give some advice to those who chase the money, I would learn something, learn the journey, because every step in that journey changes your mindset, changes your mind, and changes what opportunities you get. It changes your timeline. So therefore, you're going to get better opportunities, better deals, better job offers by just doing what you're supposed to do. And you'll find out that actually it goes a lot easier once you start doing it the way you're supposed to do it. Please stop chasing the money. I'd rather work in a job that pays half of what everyone else gets paid, but there's no stress in it. Reason is less stress. That means less things I have to do at home. Less, hours of meditation. Less, if I'm an alcoholic, less alcohol I have to consume. Think about it. Why do you drink so much? I don't know. Maybe it's because of all the stress at work. Well, what if there's no stress? Well, problem is people don't look at it that way. They look at money, money, money. I want to make $200,000. No, I want to make $100,000 with no stress. I can still do what I'm doing, just no stress. Logic is $200,000 with stress Hey, it means I have to get a vacation every year. I have to do whatever because I'm so stressed out at work. I'm also probably drinking 10 to 15% of my paycheck. Well, 100,000, I'm not doing any of that. So, food for thought. As I said, I don't chase the money. I've found that if you're passionate about what you do, the money follows you, and the money will come to me. Well, it's like every year, 2 to 3% a year. Employers usually bump your pay, and every time I change job, there's usually a hike with that. But thank you for listening. Have a great day.